I guess I've always believed that, clients are looking for kind of two things. Can you do the work? I mean, do you got the technical chops? I mean, doesn't matter, talk about anything. I mean, you could be a chef. Can you cook well, and are you trustworthy?
Yep.
You're someone that I could work with. And I think part of that is very much the human experience. And I think it's not so much about being right all the time. It's just that I know your best efforts are always being there, because I think a lot of people, most people are good people. And I think they do forgive you. When you mess something up, it's like, hey, you know what, it happens, but I know you're honest. I know you're going to own it. I know you're going to fix it. And really, that's the kind of person I want to work with in the end, because I know whoever I choose to work with is not going to be perfect. What I got to know is the people that I work with, when things don't go as planned, they're going to be there to help remedy that. And to me, that stuff's priceless. I mean, and look at what you said. I mean, that's how you built the business,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in that way, you really portray, the fact that you're a team with your client. You're not, I'm the engineer sitting on this side of the table. You're the client sitting on that side of the table. We're a team. We're holding hands, going down the road to get to the end of a project.
Right.
And Joe, that's what I think a lot of small engineering firms, or any type of service provider for that matter, really needs to understand that, yes, you do have an expertise in a specialty that you do provide to the client, but if the client succeeds, you succeed. And that way, in that fashion, Joe, I mean, fact of the matter is you are a team.
Yep.
And it ought to be treated as a team.
Welcome to the Intergenius Podcast with Joe Pastor.
I want to welcome you to another episode of the Intergenius Podcast. Today, I'm excited to have with me Quinn Bailey, Chief Operating Officer of Zion Engineering. Quinn, thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting me to this, and I am really looking forward to getting started here.
I appreciate it. Well, Quinn and I had a great phone call to kind of set up this show, so I think this is going to go in lots of different directions today, but it's going to be a good one. Let's just take it right from the top. What is it? What took you to engineering? I mean, why engineering? Why not accounting?
Well, that's a good, you funny you start out that way, right?
Yeah.
Because I think in our discussions when prior to this interview, we discussed the fact that growing up, I'm an only child. I'm the only child of two accountants, actually. So yeah, accounting was obviously there front and center for me for the majority of my young formative life. And I did want to be an accountant at one point in time, just because that's what I knew. However, it's funny. Most people don't really know what they want to do when they are going into college and whatnot. Right. I was lucky enough to have a sixth grade science teacher who actually gave us a paper about engineering and what various different types of engineers do. Mm-hmm. And I read that, and I found out that basically I found what I wanted to do at sixth grade, and I just worked on it from that point on. So I was lucky. I was able to find what I wanted to do very early on, and thank goodness I didn't want to do accounting, because I don't think I would like it.
I had to throw that out there. I had to get us started off today, but that's
Sure.
I mean, that's a blessing, really. I mean, you to be so young, and to have that so dialed in and just kind of be natural and comfortable. I mean, I've talked to lots of people, and there's always this there's a discovery, right? There's a journey for a lot of folks of you go to college and you're not really sure what you want to do, and you kind of some people kind of get it figured out. Some people they hit a lot of roadblocks before the pieces of the puzzle start to come together. But to have that clarity so early, that's a real gift. Let me ask you why, my father's a civil PE. So why, and you're a licensed mechanical engineer. So why mechanical engineering? What is it about that in particular as a discipline that you chose over, the other options?
That's a good question, Joe. When I started out, I went to the Colorado School of Mines for my undergraduate degree. And the way that when I went there, the way that they had their discipline set up, it was just engineering. Okay. And that engineering discipline in the engineering degree was a mixture of mechanical, civil, and electrical engineering. So luckily, I had the opportunity to explore a few before I got into the meat and potatoes of mechanical engineering. But as I got into it, I really enjoyed it. It's going to be funny when I talk to you about this, because I really enjoyed the statics and strengths of materials part of it, and the material science part of the mechanical engineering curriculum, and I really enjoyed the machine design portion of the engineering curriculum. Now, that's not what I do now by any stretch of the imagination. When I graduated, I went to go work for Johns Inc., which is a combustion equipment manufacturer, but they really focus on thermal and fluid sciences and whatnot from that standpoint. So I really found that's what I truly enjoy. And actually, when I went to go back and get my master's degree at the University of Colorado at Denver, that's what I specialized in, was fluid mechanics and thermodynamics.
Okay, interesting. What do you think? I mean, it's interesting. You started the program and you had that ability to look at several of the disciplines, and it sounds like in more than just in a cursory way. And most engineering programs, they really want you to pick the discipline kind of going in. And I think in some ways you can touch others. One of the things I studied before I ended up finishing my degree, the thing that I started off in was biomedical engineering at Tulane University. And I came to realize that's not what I wanted to do with my life. But I do remember having to kind of declare early, I think at the start of the program when I went in, and we sort of had our own lane, because of the nature of the program. We did get to look at some of the other disciplines, but again, we had our own lane to follow. Do you think it was good to be able to see some things as you did in a bit of a broader way to really dial in on the mechanical side?
Oh, sure, 100%. And it was really good to be able to take other classes, basic classes in electrical as well as civil engineering.
Right.
And actually, that's helped out tremendously throughout the course of my career. And we actually had to take a field session when I was there at Mines. It was a 6-week field session, and I spent 3 weeks out in the survey field with old survey equipment. So we had transits and had handheld levels and whatnot from that. And it was a good, just basic knowledge and an understanding of some other disciplines that you were able to gain coming out of that curriculum. So it's helped me throughout my career to understand at least a little bit of what other engineering disciplines do.
But you bring up a great point, though. I like that. I mean, you get that cursory sort of knowledge, so you got an idea of what they do, but that a sense of appreciation. I mean, it's like when you in and around surveying, it's like, it's not so much you're going to have a crew come out and survey the property, but it's like, I've actually done that. I know what it's like. You're in the elements. Maybe it's a nice day. Maybe it's not so nice outside. So that's real. You're not sitting in this, conditioned space inside a building. So I think that appreciation is really, really powerful. And I can only imagine that's had to have helped as you've kind of moved through your career, and, now you're running the organization on the operational side. So,
well, it just gives you one, like I said, it just gives you a basic understanding of what they require to do their job, from their perspective. I mean, it's I would say, and I'm not them by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say hopefully it gives them comfort to know that I'm not going to be asking them to do something that is way out of line of what they need to do. Right. And then also know that they are going to need A, B, and C before they get out there to actually do their work.
Right. Yeah. Talk to me in kind of transitioning here a little bit. I mean, talk to us a little bit about, what you do today. I mean, running the organization today, kind of in the niche that you're in. I think of people watching this episode, and I think of people that are, obviously in the engineering space, probably at different points in their career, but, maybe even for some of the younger folks that are watching, looking at kind of your career path and sort of your progression, and kind of, wondering what someone at your state in the game is, does on a daily basis.
So on a daily basis, so Zion Engineering, it's a consulting engineering firm. We specialize in oil and gas, we focus primarily on the midstream side of things. So gathering for both crude oil, natural gas, and natural gas liquids, and any other type of fluids that are associated with that, such as water, wastewater, and any other potential fluids, produced water. So what do I do on a day-to-day basis? It varies, as you can imagine, with starting up a firm and starting it up with 3 principal owners, and then growing it to 50 plus people in 7 years. Initially, it was a matter of you do what's necessary to get the job done. And that could be everything from doing a project, doing a calculation, checking somebody else's calculation,
Sure.
to looking at the financials and trying to figure out how we need to pay a vendor or something along those lines, to I need to go empty the dishwasher and take out the trash. I mean, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of starting a company, right?
It is. It is. Yeah.
And then as you grow, and what we've found that as you grow the company, you need to find how to step away from some of the project specific and day-to-day project tasks. So, and frankly, we weren't able to do that for quite a while, just because I think it's in our nature to want to try to be involved and really roll up your sleeves and get things done. But as we started to extract ourselves, and as I started to extract myself, I found that I was able to actually be a better mentor to the younger engineers and project managers that we were bringing along. And that's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis, is basically act as a mentor to our employees. And then also I work on with our project managers a lot to find out where their projects are from a financial as well as a schedule basis, and then determine strategies to successfully complete projects and be more effective in completing those projects. And that could be anything from determining ways to improve the schedule and figure out if there's parts of the project that we can do earlier in order to facilitate the project, to ways to be able to standardize calculations or standardize ways that we do our drawings that would be both beneficial for our clients because it would save time and money. It would also be beneficial for us because it allows us to be more cost effective and allows us to, when we bid projects, be a little bit lower cost on that front.
Sure, be more competitive. Yeah. No, I'm glad I mean, you drew out, I think, a really nice transition that I think is necessary, right? I mean, you helped build this company, and it really doesn't happen any other way. It's so difficult. I mean, I've seen that. I'm seeing that in my own firm today, and I've seen it with other firms, over the years. But getting to that place where you have to separate yourself from the day-to-day task, which is hard to do, and I think especially for engineers. There's a right way to do things, and there's a precision, and you don't want to let go. But I think it comes from a good place. I mean, it comes from that sense of I do know what I'm doing, and I can do it right, and I can do it well, and I want to serve the customer well. I want to serve the client well. And when you step away from that, I think there's always that potential anxiety of it will be as done as well as if I was doing it myself.
You're exactly right. That is a challenge. I mean, one of the things, and most engineers are like this, you're exactly right. We want to do things our way. Because we know that we have confidence in our abilities.
Right.
And a lot of times it's difficult to try to find a way to be able to trust other people that to do the same type of job that you were doing. And here's the thing, it's a little bit of an arrogance thing, of course. I mean, there are a lot of professions where there's a little bit of arrogance involved with it. But I mean, the fact of the matter is we studied long to be able to do what we do. We didn't just gain this knowledge overnight by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
So the nice thing is as being a leader of an organization and a group or a team of folks, you have to find ways to be able to guide them to be able to do the type of tasks and do the type of work that you expect them to do. And once you guide them and provide them with the tools, you have to step back and let them do what they need to do. And then it's not a matter of sending them off on their own and letting them sink or swim.
Right.
There's a little bit of an aspect of that, but there's more of it is letting them do their job and then checking in periodically. And then when they need support, provide the support. There's an example. We had a project manager. His name was Joey, and he's young. He just became a project manager for us, and he was working with a client who was a good client. They asked him to do something that was outside of the scope of work, and he was curious about how to attack that. Should we provide a change order to our client because it's outside the scope of work, but it's not really that much work that needs to be done. So he and I sat down and formulated a strategy to go back and talk to the client about, okay, this is outside of our scope of work. And this is why it's outside of our scope of work.
Yeah.
and it will cost this much. And then we determined whether or not we were going to actually put that into our contract with them.
Sure.
And then we determined our strategy, finalized the strategy, and then he was ready to go and talk to the client. And then the last thing that I did just to try to support Joey on that front was to say, I mean, if you want, I can definitely go in there and sit with you and provide the backup when you're actually talking with the client, because that's also necessary. I mean, it's good to, even if I don't participate in the conversation between the project manager and the client, at least they know that you're there for support. And and it also provides good customer service to the client so that they know that an executive of the company is truly interested in their project.
Absolutely. I think there's massive upside there. I really do, for everything you just mentioned. And I know too, there's definitely been times in my career where, you know, I've been that guy in that seat, and I've been fortunate, you know, to have someone sit in that chair next to me. And it just, I mean, it's, the benefit's just massive. You know, it's like, again, you know, maybe when I could think of my own situations, whether they did or didn't participate, just knowing they were there, you know, there's just that sort of support. And some people may say, oh, that's a crutch. I guess I don't buy that. You know, I think it's part of the process. I think it's helpful. And it gives that confidence and that momentum to that, you know, to that younger employee to kind of build and move, because they'll get to that place where they don't need it anymore. But those first couple can be challenging, but you know, you get through the first few, you build the experience, you get the confidence that comes with it. And then, you know, all of a sudden a guy goes from here to here, and you know, that's priceless to the firm.
Now, the funny thing about Joey is when I offered up that support, he said, "No, I got it."
Oh, really?
so he went and handled it on his own.
He did. Okay.
And everything worked out just fine. So it was good. He had the confidence to be able to go out there and handle that himself. And it ended up okay. So
that's good. That's good.
But once again, I think him just knowing the fact that I'm there to support him was a good thing for him.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, you got to know that, you know, your leaders are behind you, and kind of, you know, and kind of pulling that together. I think that, you know, getting to that place, as you mentioned, out of the day-to-day, working on the business, you know, taking the mentorship roles, looking at the metrics, looking at the process. What can we do better to be more competitive? Are there spaces that we're not in that are ancillary that we should be in? Are we missing opportunities with clients? You know, what does a client mix look like? All very, very important things, as you know, and they significantly affect the bottom line of the company. But, you know, if you're not sitting back and looking and addressing and really, you know, working on those issues, right, that you can get so caught up in the execution that it just flies by, but it could cripple you in the end. So, no, it's great to see, you know, kind of that journey. And I mean, I think that speaks incredibly realistically, you know, to those that have, you know, haven't made that journey in their career. Maybe they just haven't gotten to that point in their career, or maybe, you know, they have started a business and they find themselves really struggling with taking that step away. It's like you gotta take that step of faith and be like, it's going to be okay. And in the end, as you know, the you know, I say the real valuable work, it's indispensable for sure. You got to keep an eye on where you're going and what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, and frankly, if you're not able to step away and allow others to do their job with some mentorship and with some guidance and leadership, the company's not going to grow, because then the owners or the managers become the bottleneck, and they can only do so much. I mean, I know a lot of people like to think that they can multitask and do significant amount of work, and there are individuals that can do more than others for sure. However, there is a finite amount of work that can be done by an individual.
Oh, that's true. Oh, it's not infinite. Some people will tell you that. Oh, I can do it all. It's like, yeah, no, you really can't. So, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you'll do a couple of things well and most bad, but yeah, I agree. Well, talk to me about this. What's it like? I mean, give me, you know, you talked about how the roles and responsibilities, certainly in growing this firm over the time that you have been there. You know, you've kind of done a little bit of everything. And in your role today, you're always looking at different challenges, but walk us through kind of a day in your life. What's it like? You know, from the time you get up, time you go to bed, what does a typical day for Quinn look like?
Oh, good question. I mean, I usually wake up pretty early. I don't sleep that well, for the most part. I usually have a lot of things rolling through my brain. So I wake up early, get ready, and I go to work. I mean, that's obvious
Yeah.
what most people do,
Right.
from that standpoint.
Yeah.
When I get into work, I just, get things set up, try to clean out my emails, and whatnot. But
Right.
there's always more emails than you can really, you never catch up on them. It just seems like. So I try to set aside times during the day when I just read the emails and look at them.
You block out time for that then. Okay.
Yeah, because if you continuously look at your emails, you'll never be able to focus on anything else because they're continuously coming in.
Absolutely.
So you have to be able to block out a time, and depending on how many emails you get, you have to block out more time or less time.
Sure. Sure.
So I try to plan my day out, and I've started using various different types of tools to be able to try to plan my day. And I have basically boards where I look at, okay, these are the things I need to get done, my initiatives I need to get done this quarter, for example.
Okay.
And then these are the individual tasks that need to be done in order to get these initiatives complete. And then I try to set aside, okay, on a quarterly basis, what am I going to do in this 2-week period? I need to get A, B, and C done.
Okay.
So from there, I am able to outline tasks that need to be done, and then I try to break those down into how long do they take? Are they 15 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours? How long do they take? And then I try to schedule those for the upcoming day. Actually, I try to do that at the end of the day for the next day or the upcoming week.
Okay.
That way you can try to at least allocate time to be able to get the important tasks done. And it allows you to really focus on which tasks need to be done that day or that week. So then I just start rolling through the tasks, be it working on developing a procedure for monitoring projects, meeting with the client, working on a proposal that has come in, or frankly, if a project needs somebody to check drawings, I'll set aside time, to check drawings. I mean, it's just a matter of planning, and believe me, Joe, I'm not perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination. I can talk a big game all day, every day, but I struggle with things just like, the normal human being out there, where I have laid out, I laid out 6 hours worth of tasks for the day, and I have 2 hours for anything else that comes up. Right. And then, 10, 11 hours into it, I look up and you think, oh my goodness, I've only completed half of what I planned to do today. I need to roll some stuff over to the next day. So once again, my tasks vary, but what I try to do is I try to set aside time in the morning to plan.
Okay.
And another thing that I've tried to start doing, especially during this pandemic, is try to set aside time to do a morning daily devotional. I am a Christian. I am a believer, and I think that that's important. And actually, it's given me some peace in what's going on in the world today. So sure. I try to set aside 15 minutes at least to just do a daily devotional on that front, to just try to put things into perspective. So I do that, and then I just roll into the day and start attacking the tasks. And at the end of the day, I try to do a recap and figure out what I need to do for the next day. So I'd like to say that I do this at this time and that. Now my wife, who's a teacher, has that. She's very scheduled and whatnot. And she's like, at 9:34 p.m. or 9:34 a.m. we are going to start reading. Right. I can't do that, and I don't do that. But I do try to plan out my day.
Oh, that's good. No, I like that. I mean, it's, whenever I ask that question, it's amazing how much I learn, and I like what you just said. I mean, you kind of look at these tasks and you break them down into these, these bite-sized elements, and then you take that and put that on the calendar. I like that. There's sort of different ways to do it, but to me, I'll be honest with you, in real time, I mean, that's really resonating, and probably something I'm going to change in my own scheduling. I've been thinking about this question a lot, just for myself and for, our business. And, I mean, that sounds really good.
I'll tell you after this, Joe, if you want to talk about it after our interview, I'll show you how I do it. I use Trello, which is a free online type of program and whatnot. And I just have different boards on there that allow me to categorize the tasks as 15-minute tasks or 30-minute tasks. And there you go. So
I appreciate that. That was actually a follow-up question, is what tools do you like to use? And in this case, you threw it out there for us with Trello, but Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, we can certainly do that. Catch up on that. But that's helpful. Are there any other platforms that you use during the day? Is there another, just with for the sake of time, one other that you like that has helped with the with the business?
Yeah. Oh, we have multiple different. Now, a lot of our project management tools that we use and whatnot are ones that we've developed in house
Oh wow.
for
Okay.
ourselves, and really they go into earned value management,
Yeah.
and then projections on how you're going to end the project up and whatnot.
Okay.
And I'm not a PMP professional, but it takes a lot of the strategies that come out of the PMP program,
Okay.
that from an earned value and a projection type of standpoint. So there's some very good tools that come out of that program that can be applied, across multiple different industries and platforms.
Okay. Okay. No, I appreciate that. What's kind of switching it up here a little bit? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? And I like to open it up, personal or professional, because at least in my life, they go together. I mean, my personal life
Sure.
affects my professional life, and there's no defining line. They're muddled. So, but take it any way you want. What's the best piece of advice you've got to date?
Well, that's a very good question, Joe, and I'll tell you a story about that because it really resonates, not just professionally but also personally, and it's a story that really has to do with accountability. And I was working for Harris Group at the time, and I was a lead mechanical engineer on a power plant project. It was a gas turbine project,
Okay.
and frankly, I was at the time I was young for a lead mechanical engineer. It was necessary that I took it over because we were relatively strapped on personnel. So
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily the first choice, I don't believe, for the position, but I was the available choice
Okay.
for the position. So a lot of the drawing development, fell onto my plate from that standpoint, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I mean, once again, I had a good technical background, and I had a good means to be able to. I'd worked on other projects in the past, so I knew how projects work. I knew the project progression. However, had I been responsible for it? No, I truly hadn't been responsible for it. So there was a set of piping and instrumentation drawings that we had developed for this gas turbine plant. And Joe, the funny thing is, once again, the piping and instrumentation drawings were right. We had the technical aspect of them correct. Now there's a process that you need to go through in order to make sure that everybody else on the project knows what is on the piping and instrumentation diagrams.
Right.
And I didn't follow the process. And, Joe, I got called into my supervisor's office
Yeah.
at the time because I didn't follow the process. And it was like I didn't put, a certain set of drawings out for everybody to review. And so not everybody knew what was going on within the project.
Okay.
And of course, one of the other disciplines came and let my supervisor know that I had done that. And my supervisor called me in and said, "Hey, have you followed this process?" And I sat there for a second, and my supervisor's name was Ron, and I looked at Ron and I said, "Well, Ron, I could make up excuses for why I didn't get it done and why I didn't follow the process, but frankly, I just didn't follow the process."
Yeah.
And from that point on, and he trusted me. He knew I wasn't going to lie to him. He knew I wasn't going to try to sweep problems under the carpet or anything from that standpoint. And we had a great relationship, and Ron and I still have a great relationship on that front. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to talk to him for a few years, but I do need to catch up with him. But we do have a good relationship. But I've really taken that lesson of accountability to heart and try to make sure that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And I've known folks that say that, and they say that they believe in accountability, but then they truly don't follow through with it.
Right.
But like I said, it's not just important professionally, but it's also important personally in your marriage with your kids,
Yeah.
and just with your family in general and other personal relationships, to be truthful and be accountable and follow up on what you said that you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, that resonates. I mean, I think it's going to resonate with pretty much everybody watching this podcast in their own unique way. And it certainly resonates with me. Yeah, I just, to me, it's the sort of that truthful part of it, right? You say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, but we've all fallen short. But I think owning it, you got to own it at the end of the day, because, I mean, there's really nowhere else to go. Once someone can't trust you,
Right.
like everything falls apart, right? The whole foundation starts to crumble. But if I can trust you and you made a mistake, and I can look in the mirror and I can see plenty of mistakes I've made, then it humanizes the experience. I think establishes a trust, and I mean, really kind of builds your credibility in the end. I mean, it's a great life lesson. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, you're right, with family, work, it's all the same.
Well, and once again, back to the professional standpoint, growing your business. I mean, if you're not honest with your customers and your clients, and they know that you have a tendency of trying to not be honest, then they're not going to trust you. Now, as you develop trust, then you tend to get a repeat business, and they tend to come back over and over and over again. And that's one of the ways that we grew Zion, is we did develop good relationships with our clients where they knew that they could trust us. And that resulted in a high repeat rate. I believe our repeat client rate was up in the 95% range. So
That's huge.
we have a lot of clients to come back.
That's great. That's great. Well, and I think, I think sometimes there's a misnomer there too. I think there's something about, I guess I've always believed that, clients are looking for kind of two things. Can you do the work? I mean, do you got the technical chops? I mean, it doesn't matter, talk about anything. I mean, you could be a chef. Can you cook well, and are you trustworthy? I mean, he's someone that I could work with. And I think part of that is very much the human experience. And I think it's not so much about being right all the time. It's just that I know your best efforts are always being there, because I think a lot of people, most people are good people. And I think they do forgive you. When you mess something up, it's like, hey, you know what, it happens, but I know you're honest. I know you're going to own it. I know you're going to fix it. And really, that's the kind of person I want to work with in the end, because I know whoever I choose to work with is not going to be perfect. What I got to know is the people that I work with, when things don't go as planned, they're going to be there to help remedy that. And to me, that stuff's priceless. I mean, and look at what you said. I mean, that's how you built the business,
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, in that way, you really portray, the fact that you're a team with your client. You're not, I'm the engineer sitting on this side of the table. You're the client sitting on that side of the table. We're a team. We're holding hands, going down the road to get to the end of a project. Right. And Joe, that's what I think a lot of small engineering firms, or any type of service provider for that matter, really needs to understand that, yes, you do have an expertise in a specialty that you do provide to the client, but if the client succeeds, you succeed. And that way, in that fashion, Joe, I mean, fact of the matter is you are a team. Yep. And it ought to be treated as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny as you're saying that, it just resonates. My father owns an engineering design, consulting firm in the Bay Area. And he's always said that, he's had the business now over 30 years, and he always used the term shoulder to shoulder. We're shoulder to shoulder with the clients. We're shoulder to shoulder, in the office. I mean, that's what it is. And if that doesn't work for you, then this is not going to be a place that's going to fit you. And I think his clarity on that was absolutely outstanding. And I think has been a huge reason for his successes. That is the way you do it, and you do it right. And anything that deviates, causes distraction, problems, et cetera. Yep. Right. I mean, nothing to help grow the firm, just quite the opposite. So, no, I appreciate you sharing that. That's spot on. Let's, we're kind of winding down towards the end here, but I want to get kind of a prediction out of you a little bit. I mean, you're looking at the, kind of the oil and gas space, look at what you guys kind of do. I mean, what do you see when you look out 5-10 years? Any thoughts come to mind on the space in general?
For oil and gas in general?
And even in your niche. Yeah.
Well, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of, this year has been very difficult for oil and gas, as you can imagine. Yep. I mean, frankly, we got a triple whammy, thrown at us, with Saudi Arabia and Russia deciding to enter into a price war, the early part of March. That was difficult. for the industry. And then with COVID coming and sweeping through the nation and sending everybody home and reducing demand, that was the second thing that happened. And then just the uncertainty with the election in the United States.
Right.
That's really, those three things have really put a damper on the oil and gas industry this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we have great clients from that standpoint. And a lot of our clients have really slowed down their work or even stopped any type of capital work for this year,
Okay.
which has been challenging for us on that front. A lot of the work is being pushed further out. Exactly when, and planning is extremely difficult at this point in time. Fact of the matter is, oil and gas historically is up and down, and everybody's crystal ball is extremely cloudy. And people make predictions, and it's worse than a weatherman and whatnot. I mean, predicting the weather is so much easier nowadays than trying to predict what's going to happen in the oil and gas market. Right. But what do I see happening in the oil and gas market? And this is just from Quinn Bailey's 10,000 foot view.
Yeah.
I think with renewables coming online and a big push for renewables, independent of what administration gets put into place next week, we'll see a bigger push for renewable energy to be coming into the market sector. It's not going to be a light switch. You aren't going to have all of a sudden we're going to be 100% green energy per se. Yeah. It's going to be a gradual progression towards green energy sources being more prevalent in the industry, making up a more of a percentage of the energy generated in the United States and the world. However, oil and gas isn't going to go away. It's just there's no more portable and energy dense source of energy than petroleum products. Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, they're more inexpensive to develop and sustain and operate than other types of energy sources. That being said, developments are being made all the time. So solar and wind are going to become more and more prevalent in the energy generation side of things. And I think it's going to be a mix. I think anybody who thinks it's going to be one or the other is, I don't want to say foolish, but I think they're fooling themselves. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be 100% one or the other. It's going to be a mix of oil and gas. So oil and gas and green energy. So I think what's going to happen with oil and gas, I think for the next 2 years, I think capital projects are going to be slow. There's going to be a few. There's going to be a little bit of a shift, I believe, towards developing natural gas resources, just because I think power plants and whatnot, they're going to be shutting down a bunch of, and they are currently shutting down a bunch of coal-fired power plants, transitioning to green energy or natural gas driven turbines. So I think that's going to be a big push, and it's been a push for the past, goodness, probably 10 years to move that direction. So I think natural gas is going to become a little bit more of a growing industry sector. I think that with the downturn in the market and the reduction in United States oil production, I believe that that will drive a little bit more of a demand of an increase in oil production in the United States as well. It's not going to be like it was in the past few years where the United States was the largest oil producer in the world. It's going to be, we're probably going to get back. We're still going to be a large oil producer, but we're not going to be back to the heyday of that market. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the cost of projects. In the heyday, while cost was important, schedule seemed to be more important. It was first to market. And sometimes it was a push between schedule and cost, and schedule won out. So there was a lot of inefficiencies that went into the projects that were developed in oil and gas. And I think that's going to definitely shift the focus on that front. So oil and gas isn't, so I guess to sum it up, oil and gas isn't going away. The next few years are going to be difficult for oil and gas. But in the end, I think the market and the folks that are still in the oil and gas sector are going to be more efficient and more more effective in the way that they execute projects and develop and deliver energy to the market.
You know, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I agree with you 100%. Having worked on a lot of utility scale, solar projects and, on some transmission projects, whether it's, AC, HVDC in my own career, it's a blend, and it will be a blend, and you're starting to see, it's a project that, we're staffing right now. That's, it's a hybrid solar battery storage project, right? So you're seeing a lot of the batteries come online, but I agree. I mean, the mix is there. It's going to be there for a while, and it takes time, to do any of these projects, right? Not a lot of people that don't necessarily focus on the licensing and permitting side of the equation. It's
Right,
expensive.
right.
Developers have money at risk. It's real risk. There's no guarantee they're going to get across the finish line. You got to get all your power purchase agreements in place. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, constructing the project is one aspect, but as there's a lot that goes into it. But to your point, it doesn't have, I like the light switch. It's not how it works. I mean,
Right.
you talk to people every now and then, they're like, if the light switch doesn't go on, how can we get that fixed in an hour? And it's like, no, that
No.
takes years. That takes years. So I don't know what your alternative is. You got some candles laying around, but no, it's very, very real, and it takes time. So I appreciate that. I appreciate, kind of giving us your take on it with the vantage point that you have. So one of the things I always like to ask at the end of the show, you've talked a little bit about it before, how you enjoy the mentoring, you enjoy working with the engineers, you enjoy working through that process, doing things right, keeping an eye on the big picture, client focused, growing the organization. I mean, you got a lot of bandwidth, you got a lot to offer. There's no doubt anybody who watches this podcast for a couple of minutes is going to figure that out. And what's the best way to get in touch with you? Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. If someone's watching this podcast is like, I really resonate with Quinn and I'd like to talk to you. And it could be a couple of things, right? I've got questions about my career, or, I'm thinking about, maybe giving up what I'm doing and getting into engineering, or, I'm in oil and gas and I'm, I've got some questions about whatever, right? I mean, what would be the best way for someone to reach out and get a hold of you so you could have a chat?
Well, Joe, I mean, and if you don't mind,
Sure.
LinkedIn obviously is always a good way to get in touch with me, and you can message me through LinkedIn.
Sure.
But frankly, I'll give out my cell phone number if that's okay. I mean, do you mind if I give out my?
No, go ahead. Sure. Yeah.
So you can always reach out to me on my cell phone. It's area code 720-320-2375. And if I don't answer, I'm probably on the phone or doing something else, but feel free to leave a message and I will make it a point to get back to you on that front.
I appreciate it. Well, you know what, anybody watching this podcast and, you got that kind of an offer sitting in front of you, man, you gotta jump up and take it. So I appreciate you throwing that out there and being available. And thank you for coming on the show today, Quinn. I when we had our chat to prepare for the show, I was very excited about getting together with you. I knew it was going to be a good one, and I appreciate all the genius you brought with you today on the podcast. Really insightful.
Well, I don't know if it's genius, Joe, but it's just life experience. How's that?
It's good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, anybody watching the podcast, if you want to jump in the hot seat where Quinn is and get on the show, look behind me here. innergeniuspodcast.com is the website. Go in, fill out the forms, and we will get back to you and schedule a time to get you on the show. And until next time, I want you to remember, there's a genius inside of all of us. It's up to you to discover it, harness it, and share it with the world. So the question really is this: what's your inner genius?
This is the Padua Podcast Network. PaduaPodcastNetwork.com.